Hey y'all, it's Teresa. Let me tell you something. Exciting things are happening. Fall is in the air. Our first major event is this month, and Lou and I are very busy creating new content for your listening pleasure. Hold up. I think I kind of glossed over something that I want to revisit. Yes, our first major event is this month. It's a women's conference, and it's not too late for you to get a ticket. Head on over to www.earringsoff.com to purchase a ticket to our first major event, a women's conference titled Empowered Women Empower the Community. Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. A lot of hard work has gone into it, and you don't want to miss it. That's right. And because of all of the exciting things that we've got going on this month, we're taking the liberty to repeat some of our most popular episodes this month. And today you will be hearing a repeat of one titled A Bad Four Letter Word, Debt. In this episode, we interview Ashley Gordon. Ashley shares helpful and specific tips on how she and her husband developed and executed a plan to become debt free. Enjoy. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
All right. Well, hello. We are here today with Ashley Gordon, who has agreed to meet with us to talk about debt management. Teresa and I are very excited to have Ashley here, and we're looking forward to this discussion. So welcome, Ashley. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. Ashley Gordon is my name, and I am currently serving as the Director of Operations, the Director of Ministry, kind of a hodgepodge of things for my church that me and my husband, Vernon Gordon, started back in 2015. Vernon is my husband, and we got married in 2011. We have two children, Madison and Jackson. They're 6 and 4. And
Children.
Yes, they are the love of our lives, and they keep us extremely busy, and apparently we're going to be helping to teach them this year with virtual school that's going on for Chesterfield Public Schools. But that's pretty much me. My background is I'm from Chesapeake, Virginia. Graduated there, went to VCU, got a bachelor's in accounting, then got a master's in accounting. I started out working in public accounting and did the whole busy season life for a while before I had kids. And then I transferred over as a corporate auditor to Altria, and I left there and went full-time into ministry, and that's what I'm doing today.
Wow. Ashley, I tell you, I'm looking forward to the discussion. I used to work with the budget in my old job, and that intimidated me. I had a staff of people, and here I was. This was my team, and I was like, I hate when budget season comes. I hate all of that. So we're looking forward to the discussion. We certainly know you bring the experience, the credentials. So again, welcome. So we're going to get started.
Okay.
All right. So I want to start with the first question, Ashley. Was there an incident or light bulb moment that you or your husband had which made getting out of debt such a priority?
Yes. So we always, me personally, I've always had the goal of debt freedom and getting out of debt.
Well, we all have that.
Yes, we all do. And to be quite honest, my coming into marriage, my debt was not a lot, but my husband's debt was. And so,
throwing shade, Ashley. Okay.
He asked me, "What are you going to throw shade?" But that was one of the key things I learned just with marriage, like the power of oneness. So his debt is my debt, and so going into marriage, we kind of knew that, and that's kind of how we were like, let's tackle this together. It's not your debt, it's our debt. And so we had that concept, but we still weren't necessarily like, we're really going to go all in for this. What happened was in 2016, we had just planted our church. So we were about a year old, and I had a passion for wanting to make sure that our congregation was well-versed in financial literacy. And, our tagline is "Let's Grow Together." And so we're on this debt journey, and we know so many, especially in our peer group.
Yeah.
So many people in our peer group have loads of debt. And so we wanted to really embrace that tagline, "Let's Grow Together." So we did the Financial Peace class by Dave Ramsey. We hosted that class, but not only did we host it, we were a part of the class.
Okay.
Because we wanted to model the behavior that we were advocating for other people to do, and what better ways for us to be a part of the class. And to be honest, I was a part of the class and knew all about budgets, but our student loan debt is over $100,000.
Oh, wow.
And so when you think about that number, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And for us, it was like, yeah, we can do this, but we never had a plan of how can we do this? And is it really possible? Or should we just, like, can you just die with student loan debt and everything be okay? Like we didn't have a plan. Yeah. And so we went through this class, and the class really was kind of that light bulb moment, not only for us, but it was like, hey, we could be the people who show that it can be done. Wow. We could be the people that say, especially in the African American culture, because when you hear 100,000, usually people are like, oh no, just take it to your grave.
Wow, that's amazing. So, just so Vernon doesn't feel bad, I was the one entering my marriage with that debt. So you don't have to throw shade. It's the same thing. You mean well though, and we learn. Okay.
Yeah.
And we love you guys.
So, but Ashley, you said since you didn't have a lot of debt, I wanted to ask you, what was your biological family's philosophy about money growing up? For example, my mom was pretty responsible with money, and I saw her manage money. And so when I was young, fresh out of undergrad, I got a little reckless. But then what I saw her doing and how careful she was, that started to kick in. And then I became more conscious about money. So is there anything you can share about how our environment, either the one we grew up in or the one we later find ourselves in, can impact how we manage and think about money? Because like I said, my mom in my neighborhood, she was a single mom after my dad died, raising 7 kids. And I lost it a little bit, got a little reckless in my 20s, but it kicked in what I saw her doing and how much of a money manager she was on a very limited income. So I want you to talk about how your philosophy or what you saw that maybe impacted the way you think now.
Yeah, I would say that, so the conversation of money, as far as us discussing it, wasn't necessarily a big thing. Mm-hmm. But I know there's the scripture, or not a scripture, but just a saying that more is caught than taught. Mm-hmm. So they modeled it for me. And honestly, I don't know if we ever had any financial struggles. They might have protected from that, because both my parents lived a very modest lifestyle. Okay. My mom works as a cafeteria worker for school.
My mom too. Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my dad worked for the shipyard. Mm-hmm. But one of the things what I saw in them, how they demonstrated that they were very modest. There was not a lot of material things. While my friends were standing in line for Jordans and the name brand things, that was just not something. And I never knew why. I'm like, do we not have the money? But it was just kind of like, that's not something that was on a platform in our household.
Right.
It was a 1-story household, and they've lived a very simple life. And so I've never really had the desire to spend. just from the lifestyle that they kind of carried out. It was kind of like, we're not going to live beyond our means.
Right.
So that was one of the big things. Another thing is, looking back, I was reflecting back on the fact that they taught me, they didn't say it at the time, but they taught me how to operate in a budget. So as I got older, even at 12 years old, they would give me $100 for Christmas. And I would have to determine, how was I going to use that $100? And once that $100 is gone, that's my Christmas, and it's gone. But they kind of allowed me to start making those decisions and start putting that power of the thought process, the rationale. Oh my goodness, well, how much does this cost? The Barbie costs $50. Well, I don't know if I need the Barbie right now. So it was like they entrusted me at an early age with saying, like, hey, this is what you worked hard for. You've gotten good grades. This is what you'll have. But when this is gone, it's gone. Wow. So I remember finding myself, I don't even know if they still have this, but like the JCPenney's catalog. So I would be going through the catalogs and going through the ads and seeing, okay, this is how much this costs. And so I love that they put that responsibility within me at a very young age.
Wow. Yeah. Ashley, that is so helpful, because when you talked about, you didn't get the Jordans, that's a big part of it, is this peer pressure and what we see and spending beyond our means, and actually sitting down and saying, like you did with the Barbie, do I really need that? Is this something I gotta have? And then as I got older, I began to think, okay, why? And if it's something I'm feeling like I gotta have, what's behind that? I mean, what am I dealing with that makes me feel like this piece of jewelry or this handbag somehow is my identity? And so that's what I began to question as I got older. So yeah, very, very good point.
So for me, it was I grew up in a modest household too. And I think because of that, I didn't learn what you learned, Ashley. What I learned once I graduated from college, I thought, you know what? I'm going to buy my mom that necklace. I'm going to buy my dad that zero-turn lawnmower that he's been looking at forever and wanting to buy that he didn't want to buy. And I ended up putting myself in debt because of that, And then I married a man. Well, my husband, what he said to my father when he told him that we were going to get married was that, yeah, I want to marry your daughter, but we can't until we get her out of debt. So it's been as an adult and married that I've come up with those principles, that only buy what you can afford, and don't, because I was using credit cards. I truly, even though I had a great job, I couldn't afford from my salary to buy that type of lawnmower, that necklace that I knew she wanted. But so I did. I amassed a great bit of debt. So, but yeah. So, Ashley, you mentioned, you mentioned about Dave Ramsey. So I know a little bit about his principles in that program. And one of the things he talks about is that emergency fund, right? So is it important to start with an emergency fund when you're setting off on a path to pay off debt? And if you feel that it was important to your path, how important was that emergency fund?
I would say it is. And in following Dave Ramsey's principles, I would say I wish I would have done that. So what we started out doing was, we didn't know, but we were just putting money towards savings.
Yeah.
And we reached the $1,000 mark, and then we kept still putting money towards savings without any goals, when we could have been going ahead and knocking out some of that debt. So I think, yes, having that $1,000 emergency fund is important, because things comes up, and I mean, just random things, hospital bills, your car, anything, having that cushion, I think, is important. And once you have that, then you can start to move on to other things. And then also, this is the thing, because I'm like, you have to maintain the cushion too. So, once you pay $500 for a hospital bill, where there's only $500 left in your emergency fund, so now make sure you restock that.
Yeah.
sure that you have that $1,000 mark. And even in that, you want to think about a few other things to put in place. Like I think about when we bought our house, we got a home warranty. And so instead, when the AC breaks down and, that's covered under the warranty, instead of your whole emergency fund is gone because you didn't, plan accordingly by putting, $40 aside a month for the warranty. So I think there's some things you have to put in place on top of the emergency fund, insurance, things like that. But having that is going to be key to kind of jumpstart so that like if something happens, I don't have to be concerned about, no, I can't go to the hospital. Like you start to compromise things that are important because you don't have the money for it.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, very good point. So we talked a little bit about, or there's been a mention about the student loan debt. So when many students have no choice but to get loans to pay for, their education. So do you have any advice for students who have to pay using student loans? Is there something they need to think about? Is there an approach to paying off debt or minimizing it? Anything that you're aware of that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, I would encourage minimize at all costs. And so some of the things I would think about when I think about my college journey, one is you don't have to accept all of the money that they give to you, because a lot of times they give you more than what your tuition is. And so I found the refund check culture. And so a lot of my peers were waiting on their refund check because that was when they could buy the clothes and they could go out to eat. And that was kind of the excess. That refund check, it was, okay, your student loans are paid for right now, or your tuition is paid for right now. But then there's this excess money. And I know peers who lived off of their refund check. And so, one, I would say if you are going to get student loans, get what you need to pay the tuition.
Okay.
Don't get the excess. Don't do that. And then people would say, well, how will I live? I would recommend to do some kind of part-time job, work study, to be able to compensate for if you do want to just go out for the weekend, or you do want to get something to eat that's not on campus. But that helps because all of that money is building up interest. So why would you want to build on the interest on top of your tuition, but just using the money for random things? Right. And that, honestly, that's what happened even with my husband. He was living off of, we knew people who were using it for their apartments. They were, for the year, that was like, I can't wait for my refund check to come. And so that's one of the big things. If you are going to school, of course, scholarships, if you can, even a summer job before you go into the school. Once again, building for children, like those high schoolers, teaching them now, like you can be putting money aside to pay for a portion of your tuition, even if it's $50, even if it's $100. They need to learn that now versus trying to learn it after school. So if you start to instill those principles in them now, say, okay, let's work toward this. Let's build up towards your tuition so that on the back end, you don't have to be like me and at 32 done paying your student loans. Another thing is I didn't have the loan forgiveness program based on the career I went into, but there are a lot of loan forgiveness programs for public workers. So that's also a thing to make sure, reading the fine lines of, okay, if there is a loan forgiveness program, what do I need to do? Because there's some fine print that you got to make sure that you're on track with in order for that loan forgiveness to happen. Or the other side is you could work and then do your master's education or your doctorate. I went straight into my master's, so that meant I paid for it. Versus you could work somewhere and maybe they would pay for your master's or your doctorate. So I think thinking about that as a freshman in college versus, at 25 when everything's done and you're like, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. Right. Having those conversations now, freshmen in high school, having those conversations now is going to be the important thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very, very good information.
It is. Yeah. So actually, you were talking about the emergency fund and having a having a plan for that. So would it be the same? Is it as important to set goals when you're trying to actually pay down the debt?
Yes. 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 We had a goal from the start, and it felt like a moving target at times. It definitely felt like a moving target at times. Yeah. Because, we started having kids. And so daycare costs actually ended up, it was our mortgage, it was daycare, and it was student loans. Those were our top 3 bills.
Yeah.
And so if at times, and then we went from 3 incomes. Vernon had 2 jobs. I had 1 to 1 income. Yeah. It was just me working when he started doing ministry. Mm-hmm. And so, but at the end of the day, the goal was still the same. The goal was still debt freedom. The goal was still financial freedom. How we accomplish it, the strategy and the timing of it changes. But that goal was always the same. Let's get rid of this.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. That's good.
And keeping that in, I'm just to keep it in front of you to keep it in front of us was a big thing. Not only we held each other accountable, but then we had others around us that also held us accountable. But we had to keep it in front of us. So for me and Vernon, we had meetings. We would have finance meetings. We came into each year saying, hey, these are our goals. This is how much we want to pay down. By the end of the year, we should be able to look back and say, we did it.
Right.
If we didn't do it, what happened?
Yeah, having a clear plan, a clear strategy, not just, I want to get out of debt, but incremental goals along the way, achievable that you can say, okay, this is our target. That's some gold stuff there. It is. With the Black Lives Matter movement, what has been discussed quite a bit, Ashley, has been the fact that as African Americans, our debt to income ratio is scrutinized more. I wrote a blog about my husband and I going through that when we tried to get our first mortgage, buy our first house. So while reviewers may exercise more flexibility with others, it's sometimes harder for us, particularly African Americans in our community, to qualify for a home, even rent an apartment. We get a higher interest rate if we want to purchase a car or make other purchases. We're always seemingly at a disadvantage for that. And I know you're here to talk about your family's journey, which enabled you to pay off some substantial amount of debt. However, I wanted to ask you if you have any advice or tips you can share to help listeners more successfully manage, larger purchases. What factors should they consider as they move forward? Because I have nieces and nephews that I love dearly that have finished college. And, I try to talk to them and share our journey. But what information would you impart to people about that?
Yeah, I think you're first acknowledging that it is happening. Because I think sometimes unless you experience it, you're like, no, how would they do that? How is that possible? And then you're experiencing it and you're like, no, but it is.
Right.
It's real. So the first part is acknowledging like, hey, yes, this is a factor. This is a challenge. It's not something that it can be overcome. It certainly can be, but let's make the acknowledgement that it is happening. One of the things you said, actually, I think it's important that as an African-American community, we start to talk about wealth building. We start to talk about legacy. We start to talk about how you did do it.
Right.
And the tangible things like, okay, you did it, but how? Did you have a financial advisor? How much did you pay? Like sometimes we don't even want to share like, how much do you pay your financial advisor? Like the dollar amounts. But I think it's important as a community, as an African-American community, that we start talking about this more. Not to say that that's going to help, because then we're still going to have to combat against those systemic racism factors. But I think it builds us up. It gives us the confidence that we need. It gives us the boldness to still do it despite what's happening. When we sold our house, one of the things our realtor told us was, you need to take down all your Black books. My daughter had to take all her Black dolls. They were like, your house may not sell as quickly if they see that you're African American. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she was African American. And she said, I'm just telling you as someone on the inside.
Yeah, I know. It's sad. It's still happening. Yeah. Yeah.
It's still happening. And she said, if you want to sell your house quickly, all these books, if they have anything to do with race or anything, go ahead and take them down. So it's happening. And it's sad because it's 2020, but I think it's important that we just start having the conversations within our community. And not only that, but just also encouraging not only just young people, but older people. Like, we can be in those positions to start dismantling those things.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to have the boldness to go into those environments and say, okay, well, I'm gonna be the influencer here, and this is what we're not gonna do anymore. So I think that's also another factor.
Right, you're exactly right. And what I try to share with my family members is just, you do whatever you can to bolster your financial position so that, even though it's not right, it's unfair, it's there. So don't place yourself at a disadvantage. And I also share with them one of the critical things that my husband and I did, because we went through financial counseling for our first house, and to make sure we were debt free. But one thing we did, even when we got to that point, we bought a house significantly less than what the bank told us we were qualified for. And it wasn't that we were doing some type of big strategy. It's just the house we saw that we liked for our little family was significantly less. But I know without a doubt that decision, I tell people, it set the cornerstone for our finances going forward. Because when I tell you, we were able to get deals, when things went on sale, when we needed something, we didn't have to stress because we had money to deal with it. And then because we were comfortable, we didn't feel stressed that we had to buy anything we didn't need, because somehow that something happened, I think, mentally, which made me feel like, oh, I got this. So sometimes when you're stressed financially, I think you compound it by making other bad choices.
Right.
Because your car breaks down, and rather, you can't afford the $1,000 repair bill, so then you think the solution is to go buy a new car. And so we get into that kind of decision making, and it makes it very difficult, where your car with the $1,000 repair bill, if you fix it, it's paid for. And so I've been very honest with my family members. I've laid it all out there. I don't want them to have to go through, what I've experienced in terms of trying to rebuild credit. So I think that's critical.
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit about the incremental goals to pay down the debt and to get that emergency fund in place. And then the fact that you are a young couple, and it is a society where things matter. Like, people care about what you wear and what neighborhood you live in, and what
kids wear and where they go to school and all of that. Yeah.
All of that matters. So how has paying off debt impacted your day-to-day life, and what changes have you noticed because of the type of society that we're living in, and how other people think about it, how other people think about things, and likely some of your friends, because you've talked about how you guys have made that a goal for not just you, but your church community and your friends to grow together,
Yeah, definitely. I always say one thing, how has it impacted day-to-day life, just the level of discipline that we now have. It's kind of like, we don't have any debt, but but now we're wealth building, and we're trying to build legacy here. I'm filtering still my decisions through my kids, and how does this impact them, and what kind of culture do I want to create for them, so that they can see this is what we did. Don't do it, but if you do it, there's a way out of this. And so, but I think day to day, there's a level of discipline that we now have. Once again, going back to my childhood, we don't really need that. We've been able to filter those things so well throughout this journey that now it becomes this instant thing of yes, no. There's a sense of freedom and flexibility now of, okay, well, what's next? I want to retire and I want to live well. And I want to create that legacy for my children generationally, not just for my children, but for my children's children. And so it's a liberating feeling from a day-to-day perspective now that it's happened. And not only that, what makes it even more liberating is the fact that we talked about it before, the fact that I can tell someone else, no, it can be done. It's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging, but it makes a difference when your friend, when you can see your friend has done it. It's one thing, I'll be honest, when we started, I'm like, well, there are a lot of white people who, they didn't have that much debt to start with. So they didn't have that, they had, to me, sometimes they have an extra advantage. They do have an advantage. It's different when you see someone, like I said, my mother, she worked in the cafeteria. My dad was shipyard. So we don't come from a lot of money. So there's a work ethic that is behind this, but it says it can be done. And so that to me is liberating. It's provided a level of discipline, and it's provided a perspective that I'm building a legacy for my children.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you don't try to keep up with the Joneses.
No. I just told someone, my husband, he's debt free. And he's ready for me to get a new car. I have a Honda Civic. It's 10 years old. It's working just fine. And so it does have a little windshield problem going on. So that's fixed. But I'm just like, if I will drive my Honda Civic until the wheels fall off, because it runs fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with.
That's powerful. So now, but Ashley, we talked about paying off the bills, but can you share more specifics about your strategy for maybe paying off the debt? For example, if you have 10 different bills, how did you and Vernon make the decision which to pay off first? Or is it best to attack them simultaneously? What factors did you consider when prioritizing which to handle first, or how you were going to attack this debt reduction?
Yeah. So ideally, we would tackle our debt by paying off the smallest bill first. It's called the debt snowballing effect. And it's a mental piece of that too, because you tackle that small piece, but it kind of gives you the confidence. It gives you a little bit of motivation. It gives you a pat on your back. Okay, I knocked out one. I got 9 more to go. Instead of saying, okay, I'm going to try to accomplish this big one. It may take forever, and you start to get defeated in the process. And so we tackled the smallest ones first, and then we built up to the larger ones. Now, the only other thing is timing is a factor. So if we're talking about student loans, that makes sense. But say you have a hospital bill and it's due tomorrow.
Right.
You might want to go ahead and just put something on that.
Right.
But ideally, tackling that smallest one first, it builds that confidence. It says, I can do it. It creates a level of discipline, too. And then you start to go up to the larger ones.
Okay. That's very helpful. Yeah.
I think you've touched on our next question a little bit about when you talked about building that legacy for your kids and their kids, for your kids' kids, and that it's liberating when you can pay off and you get a level of confidence when you can pay off your debt. But what was the most satisfying byproduct of you paying off your debt?
Satisfying. It probably still resonates for my kids, but I feel like the debt for me, it was like this lingering cloud over my head. And moving that, it just opened my eyes to so much more. And it felt like it was a weight for us. And it impacted us throughout this time. I mean, I would be lying if I said we didn't have plenty of arguments of, well, no, this needs to go to dad. No, this doesn't need to go to dad. I'm tired of paying off dad. Like, why do we have all this money? Like they're just the ability, but through that, there are so many levels of communication that we've learned in our marriage. And so I feel like, yes, this was a challenge. This was a journey. But those steps along the way that we learn how to communicate, we learn how to fight battles together, not against each other. Those things fortified my marriage. They fortified my parenting.
Powerful. That's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, they fortified my parenting skills, because even as a parent, I think I came into this debt, and I said, I never want my kids. I don't want them to have any debt, and that's true. I don't. But I also don't want to just take it away from them in the sense that they don't get anything out of it either. I want them to be able to learn, this is what happens. This is how you work for something. Not that it'll just be handed to you.
Right.
But there's that it fortified us. And I want to teach them that. I don't want them to have what I had or what we had. But I just feel like throughout this process, there's so many lessons that we've learned. And I'm so grateful for so many of those. It doesn't feel good in the moment. There were tears, there was yelling, there was doors that were closed, there was heartache, there was a lot of that. But looking back now, I said, wow, I'm a better person because of it. My character is better because of it. My decision making is better because of it.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. That's awesome.
It really is. And you shared about the challenges. So this is really the last question, actually. So did you you shared that other people knew because you know that you were on this journey, I think because you took the class and you were working in concert with others. But tell us about what you shared about people, about your goal. Did you, with some other people that maybe weren't aware, that weren't on that same page, how did other people react, or family members, friends react to your lofty goal of paying off this debt?
We got multiple responses because we were aggressive. You know, when I think about some of the things we did, we cut off our cable. I started to do my yes.
You did go in.
Yes, we cut off our cable. I started to do my own hair, and you know, we didn't eat out. I packed my lunch, and so there were a lot of no's when people invited us places. We didn't say yes. We said no. This is what we're doing. Christmas time, me and Vernon didn't buy each other gifts. We only did one thing where we said we wanted to give to someone else, but we didn't have that pressure of saying, oh, I got to get Vernon this and he has to get me this. Same thing with our kids. They get 4 gifts. It's something you want, something you need, something to wear, and something to read. And so all of these things of like, what do you do and how do you do it? We told our money where to go. And so we had our income, and these are our expenses, and anything that was left, we still said that's going to go to debt, or that's going to go to pay off this. That's going to go to that. And so it's a lot of yeses and nos that other people saw. And for some people, they said, wow, that's drastic. Same thing with my car. I don't plan on buying another car anytime soon. And they're like, but you have it. And I'm like, I do. But that's not, now I have new goals now. And that's not one of them. I'm just not trying to, even when we got at my job in corporate America, I would get raises. But even when I got a raise, I never touched that. I put it towards debt. And so there were people who were like, but why? Why would you do that? Or that's too drastic. And then we had other people that says, man, I can't wait to see when that day comes for you guys.
Yeah.
And I will say we had people who said, hey, we love you guys, but we do think that maybe you want to take a break and do some self-care. Maybe you want to take a break and do some vacation. I would say in the latter part of this journey, that's what I realized. I was very headstrong in the beginning. As we got closer to the end, I said, at the end of the day, I still want some peace. And we've gotten this far. So you can reward yourself as you get to those milestones. Take a moment, reward yourself. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for all 3, because the naysayers, it's like, but I'm here today. Those who encouraged me, pushed me further. And those who said, hey, maybe you should think about this differently. That's the reason why we're here now. Right. And to your point about the house, we did the same thing. We bought a house that was below our means. Yeah. We sold it 7 years later. And that was a catalyst that helped us kind of say, okay, we're almost there.
Yeah, it's critical. I mean, it really is. And your point about when I said you went all in with the cable, I get that because my former job, I had to live in the city. And so we had our house, but we bought a condo in the city and we set up the budget for it. And when we looked at the mortgage and the electricity and the other expenses, we set our budget. But had I added in cable, it would have put us over. My husband and I lived in that condo for 2.5 years with no cable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, none. And it was like, well, that would put us over the budget. And that's not what we said we do. Yep. And, you know, people, you have to understand that, and there would have been nothing better when I got off work after a long day for me to just sit on my sofa and zone out, because I'd been reading all day and working all day and I didn't feel like reading anything else. I just wanted to watch something, and it just didn't happen for really, like I said, 2.5 years when we just did not have, we didn't even have a TV. We didn't have that, as I think about it. No, because we couldn't afford that either. That would have put us over. So it was like we were being very cautious. So those are hard decisions, but very, very necessary decisions in the lives of not only a young couple, but anyone that's trying to, as you look to retire and make other decisions. And it's certainly, you want to be able to model that for not only your children, your community, for your family, extended family members. It's a good thing for us when we see that people are doing well financially. And there's a lot of wisdom in that. So we all don't have the benefit of having your credentials, Ashley. But we have to, but we use what we have to learn better. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. That when you tell people something because you learned it in a book, that's one thing. But when you actually implement it in your lives and people can see the difference, and I am a witness that debt will choke you. I mean, it impacts everything. It impacts your ability to negotiate. I have negotiated houses and cars, and I was always doing so from a posture of strength, because I knew I don't have to have that. It doesn't matter to me whether I get it or not, because what kind of credit score you're sitting on, what kind of finance you have, what kind of money you have available. And I just didn't feel like I was at a disadvantage. Correct. And then I learned to take my emotions out of it, to not get so caught up in, I gotta have this, that then you weaken your position. And I always tried to talk to myself to remind myself, no, that's not really something you have to have. You might want to live in that house, but you'll be all right. You'll be okay.
You'll be just fine.
Yeah. So thank you, Ashley, so much for taking the time from your busy scheduling. I know you're busy, particularly with all the different hats you wear. So, but it's such good information. And when Teresa and I started Earrings Off, we were hoping to be able to share something with listeners that can help them improve their lives. And there is no way this is not going to be a positive in that. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Because here at Earrings Off,
we know better. We do better.
Take good care.